Welcome to the Coffee with Closers show, where we interview real investors that are doing real deals in this current market about how they are finding, funding, and flipping the deals. We talk about what they are doing that is working and the things they did that didn't work so that you can save time and money as you become a real investor. Welcome to the Coffee with Closers show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another Coffee with Closers show, and I've got my new mug here today. It says, I don't need Google, my father knows everything. Who needs Google when you got a dad that knows everything, right? So, hey, I've got a really, really good friend of mine. We've come to know each other over this last year and what he's doing and the people he's helping, and he's right down the road from me in Birmingham. So, Brian, say hi to everybody.
What's going on, Zack? I am honored to be on your new podcast. I'm excited you're doing a podcast.
I know,
I'm
right?
excited to be on it.
I think that I'll just say this. I'm loving this new show because, obviously we're weeding out the gurus. We're going straight into people doing deals and hint the name of the show, Coffee with Closers. But I was telling somebody the other day, I'm learning so much through these shows because, I'm getting to talk to people out there all over the U.S. doing deals, what they're doing to get them, what kind of deals they're doing. And I almost feel like it's like free coaching for me.
Zack, I know that's not what this is about, but I've done like 155 episodes of the ROI Live podcast, and that's exactly what it is. It's like my own private mastermind. I get to ask them whatever I want to, and I get to learn so much. It's awesome.
That's what I was saying. Who was I? I was interviewing Tamara about it, and she was like, "What a great idea!" I was like, "I know, right? Deliver content, learn all at the same time." So, Brian, so that people that are watching this are going to be listening to this, they come from all walks, right? New people, some seasoned people. There's always something that sparks somebody's interest to want to watch or listen to this. But what I like to start off with, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but is what was it that, I don't know, was it a book, uncle, an aunt, a seminar? What was it that took you from being a coach, because you were a coach in the sports world, just waking up one day saying, hey, I want to be a crazy real estate investor? What was that?
Yeah, I'll try to keep the story really, really short. I was actually on my way. I coached at Troy University in LA, Lower Alabama, right?
Yeah.
And I was on my way from Birmingham to Troy when I heard an ad on the radio that said, this is what I heard. I don't know what the ad actually said, but I heard that Robert Kiyosaki was coming to town and he was coming to speak. So that's what I heard. And I'm like, oh man, I remember that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read that in college. I really liked it. I want to go and hear him speak. Well, I get there and and I know he wasn't there, and it was just a seminar pitch, right? And that's actually how I got into real estate. I didn't know anything about real estate, and I learned about it from a seminar, and I got my start through Rich Dad Education, made $10,000 on my first wholesale deal, which I did 45 days after I left the seminar, the 3 day. Wow. And that was 2012. And from then I just kind of fell in love with it. I made more money, by the way, on that first deal than I did in an entire year coaching basketball and teaching. I was an adjunct English professor. I was making $1,000 a month for 6 months. So it was
that was a big shift in your mindset, huh?
Huge mindset shift. And that's what I tell everybody too, getting started. If you are getting started, it's more of a mental block than anything.
Yeah.
We were talking before you even got started about, you got students doing their very first deal. The first deal is just so important because it just helps you believe that it's real.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's kind of how it was for me. And I always tell people too, my first deal was not like this crazy deal. I mean, I didn't make a ton of money on it, but it wasn't even about the money for me on the first deal. It was about proving to myself, everybody was right. It could be done, And then from there, the fire just kicks in, right?
Totally.
So you were a coach and an English teacher. Boy, I hope you don't ever read my emails.
Hey, I put it to use, actually. I wrote a book. So
there you go.
But you did too.
There you go. I sure did. So here's where it happens though, right? You get introduced to the idea. There's fear, there's nervousness, but somewhere inside of you had to believe I can do this. And I guess that 3 day kind of laid it out for you. Did you get coaching at the 3 day, or did you just go out and do it?
So I bought a couple of classes, and I don't know how they do it now, but the way they did it then is you could, Rich Dad Education had like so many different classes. I bought a wholesale class and I bought a lease option class. Those are the first two I bought. And the wholesale thing, so before you actually go take the live class, they give me all the materials.
Yep.
And I just went through it, self-educated myself through their materials, and I just went out and failed until I made it work. And it was really, here's the thing for me that I think is interesting. I think we're all different, but I couldn't put it down.
Right.
Once I got introduced to it, I couldn't stop watching the modules. I couldn't stop devouring the information because it was all so new to me. And I'm like, this is crazy. This stuff exists. You can make money by doing what? I don't even have any money, and I can actually make money doing this stuff. And I just persisted, and I failed so many different. We can talk about my first deal. And the biggest thing is I used the wrong attorney. I used an attorney who didn't even know what wholesaling was. And by the time the whole thing was done, they were like, "Man, I can't. Can you show us what you just did? Because we want to do this. This is pretty cool."
Right.
So it's
almost like you could say you failed your way to success.
And I think that's one of the keys, right? That's one of the keys to success is you show me an entrepreneur who looks to be successful. I'm going to show you all their failures that got them to that point.
That's a good point, because I always say, when I'm talking to new people or like, hey, I've been talking to this person, I'm like, look, if someone's trying to help you do real estate and they say they've never made a mistake, run from that person. Like, run. Because that's just not true. You can't be successful without mistakes.
No doubt.
Like it is the biggest learning lesson that all of us go through. And even in my own office, like if someone makes a mistake in our world here, it's not that I'm mad they made the mistake. I'm mad if they keep making it. It's like, what did you learn from it? What can we fix? How can it get better? And that's why, like, one of the questions I'm going to ask you about your deal today is like, what did you fail at? Right? Yeah. Because I think that's where we really learn. And talking about that, so Brian, well, first off, how long have you been in real estate now?
Yeah, I got my start in 2012. Okay. And that's when I was coaching basketball. Yeah.
So 7 years.
Yeah. Summer 2012. Yeah.
Okay. So in 7 years, you obviously have done wholesaling. You've done some rehabbing. Yes.
Yeah, I've done 8. I've done 8 total rehabs, and I lost money at 2 of them.
So you're winning.
Being honest,
you're winning.
I'm not a big fan of rehabbing. I never have been.
Well, I saw a video of you and the King Flipper, and he was like, I guess he saved you on that deal, huh?
Well, that's the deal I want to talk to you guys about, because it's interesting. I was going to flip that house. And
okay, so that's the deal.
That's the deal.
Oh, I saw that on the video. Okay, I thought you were going to rehab it and then you pulled out, but you instead, the deal we're going to talk about is really how you lease option to property, correct?
Yeah. It's at lease option. Yes.
Okay. So it was like, no, don't rehab this thing, but there's another way to do it. Being a transactional engineer is really
100%
what that became to. Okay, great. So we've done wholesaling, we've done rehabbing. You got rentals?
I got up to 77 doors.
Oh, there you go, man. Look at you, rock star.
But then I started so Zach, we can get into. You want to get into failures? We can get into failures.
Well, we're gonna get into failures about this deal, okay? Yeah. So I just want to let everybody know, kind of like, because some people think they have to do one thing, but sometimes through our evolution as a real estate investor, we will start with one thing and be like, you know what, that doesn't fit my personality, or I'm not really into that, so we got to try something else, and that's okay. Like, you should, kind of like I tell my kids, like, I'm going to keep putting you in things until you find what you like.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it's baseball, soccer, basketball, whatever the case may be, I'm just going to keep putting you in it, and you're going to find one you like. I think that kind of works hand in hand with real estate investing.
Yeah, probably so. I think that there's a natural evolution too, though.
That's true.
Like when I first got started, I didn't want to wholesale. I kind of resisted wholesaling because wholesaling wasn't real estate investing.
That's true.
It's like a marketing and a sales job.
It's an acquisitions model.
And I resisted it for a long time. But after I bought my first property, I quickly realized I don't have any more money. I don't have any way to do any more deals. How can I get more money so I can do more deals? And that's when I was like, I kind of embraced the wholesale thing. And that became my business model, is go wholesale deals and turn that money into income producing property.
I started the same way. Mine was a little different. I wholesale deals to create capital to then go rehab houses, and then I took those profits and bought rental properties. But I like rehabbing. I mean, I've got a pretty good system dialed in with it. But let's talk about the deal. Let's talk about the deal. So it's a single family, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So just kind of walk us through, like, obviously, like, how did the deal come to you? Let's just start there first.
So in 2014 and 15, in my heyday of wholesaling, where we were doing tons, I've done over 400, close to 500 wholesale deals in the course of like the last 5-6 years. So did tons of volume here locally in the greater Birmingham area. So in my quote unquote heyday of really doing it, like tons of it, we were on the radio, we were doing TV ads, we were doing just so much marketing, obviously direct mail. I became known as like the bandit sign. Well, I don't really advocate for that anymore. I became known as like the bandit sign guy. You know those little red signs that are everywhere? Yeah, those are mine. Yeah. So this deal came about through a radio ad and I showed up at his door. He had just moved out, had the house listed, couldn't get bites on it, but he was behind on his mortgage by 2 months. And needed a quick solution. Okay. So there was not enough equity in the deal for him to accept a low cash offer. So I offered him terms, or I offered him a way out. So I told him, here was the deal. I basically didn't even like give him another option. It was like, here's what I can do for you. It's kind of take it or leave it. Yep. I'm going to put a 5-year option on this property.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I'm just going to rent it out. And, at the end of those 3, 4, 5 years, however long I end up taking, if I want to buy it, great, I'm going to buy it. But if I don't, it's my option and I'm going to choose not to exercise that and it'll be yours. But in exchange for that, I caught up his late payments, right? I caught up all his late payments. I put about $5,000 worth of work into the property, all at my risk, because I don't know what's going to happen, but at my risk, at my expense, and to do these things. So that was 2015, summer of 2015 when that happened. Okay. And so I've had a tenant in there the whole time. And just recently the tenant moved out and I'm like, what better time to do something with this property than right now? So my initial thought was, I'm going to rehab it. I'm not really a rehabber. I don't really love to rehab it, but there's so much equity in it. It's appreciated so much over the course of 4.5 years. Right. My initial instinct was to flip it. But, after, I still get coached. I still get consulted, right? I brought in one of the top.
Hold on before you get into the exit.
Okay. All right.
We're going to pull back a little bit.
All right, let's go.
You went real fast through that. So I'm going to dig. All right. So
let's go.
The lead came in from a radio ad.
Yes.
Obviously, most people, when you get on the phone with them, they want out of the deal. And look, I love lease options. I've been doing them a long time myself. And that conversation, getting someone to understand your terms or your price, my terms, can be a little bit of a new idea to a seller, right? So let's just spend a couple of minutes on that, right? Like the dialogue when you were talking to that seller, how did you get the seller to listen or engage in the idea of like, hey, we're going to leave the financing in place, because they probably just wanted out of it, Yeah. So how did that conversation go?
Yeah, I think to that point, I think with a lease option, you have to be careful, even a subject to, I don't want to get really cut way off in the weeds. Yep. But when you start talking about like leaving financing in place, you really need to, as an investor, as a transactional engineer, as you call it, you need to make sure you're looking out for that seller first and foremost. Sure. If they can't go get another mortgage and you're going to keep that financing in place, then you can't do these deals. So they already had another mortgage. So that
so they had two mortgage. So you already had a pain, which was payment.
I'm sorry, or had what now?
You already had identified their pain. Which was
correct.
Making 2 payments.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and that's obviously what we're going to do every single time we go in and talk to any seller is understand the situation, understand how we can help them, right? So they're paying 2 mortgage payments. They've already moved out of this house. Yep. They're 2 months behind on this house.
Yeah.
They need their first instinct is I can either get foreclosed on, or I can have someone come in here and offer me a creative solution. So that's what I did. And the way I talked to them is,
how did they receive it though? Like did they like say, let me think about it, get back to me? Did you have to follow up with them? Help me with that.
Yeah, I think that we're going to follow up with the vast majority of our leads. I presented them with an option with, hey, here's our cash price.
Yep.
And it was like something like $75,000 for this house they owed 90.
Yeah.
Or 95, and my cash price was gonna be 70. They didn't have any money, so that didn't work for them at all. I'm like, sir, the only other thing I can do for you is to offer you something creative. Would you even be interested in hearing some different creative options to where maybe possibly we could save you from going into foreclosure, and maybe I could catch up your late payments? So I kind of tee it up like that to where, would you even be interested in hearing something like this? And then at that point, we get the husband and wife together. We explain what we're going to do. We're going to, take on all the risk. We're going to catch up the late payments. We're going to fix up the house at our expense.
Right.
Meanwhile, I'm going to do all that for an exchange for a 5-year option on the property.
For the terms. So did they sign the agreement right there with you, or was there like some time that needed?
There was the initial appointment where I went and looked at the house and got to meet the husband, and then there was the follow up was, well, I left him with asking him the question, would you be interested in the question I asked earlier? Would you even entertain something like that? Right. Okay, well, great. Well, let me go back and do some research, and I'd love to sit down with you and your wife, because he had already mentioned to me his wife's not here. We know if you're in sales, you need them both. You can't have a one-legged stool. You need them both there, right? So we want the husband and wife to be there. So I went away for about a week, came back, had a presentation all ready for them.
And so basically, you had made the initial call. You had set the appointment to meet the seller in the property. You already knew what you had to do when you walked in the door, pretty much. You engaged him with a terms offer. You kind of saw he was throwing up like, well, my wife's not here. And you were like, well, hey, look, I need to do some research. Let's set another appointment. So you had a second live appointment, and that's where you came back with him and his wife. Were you
Correct.
sending them information in between there, like, hey, here's kind of what this looks like? Hey, no, you just came back to the second appointment.
Yeah, I set the well, I think this is what's important. I went ahead and set the appointment, the date, the time, the location, everything while I was at the first appointment.
Okay.
I need to do some research. Let me put together a proposal. I need to, by the way, send me, I guess if I did do that, I did through email exchange, I asked I needed the statement, the most recent statement. Send me this. I gave them some homework to do. Yep. And that way I can put together a fair offer that's going to work for both of us.
And that's a good point for people to hear. Like, if you're having them do an assignment, right? Like, hey, I need your mortgage statement. I need this. If they're sending that to you, then that means, hey, look, they're interested, right? Like they're wanting to hear what you have to say, so it makes your idea of you're getting it closed that much easier. So they're sending you the stuff. You're going through everything. You're validating, hey, I'm taking over this payment. The rent in the area is this. So I have cash flow in this deal. Yes, I got to invest some initial money, but I'm going to go to the second appointment. So when they came to the second appointment, were they open about it? Like, yeah, we think this is what we want to do. Can you walk us through the paperwork? And
yeah, can I walk you through the paperwork? Is that what you're?
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying to them. Yeah. I can if you want me to. Yeah, exactly. And I think the whole time they're understanding I'm going to come to them with the terms, because I said multiple times, like, catch up late payments, take over payments. I started saying phrases like this numerous times to get them conditioned for what they're about to, so they can be prepared for what they're about to hear.
Right. Which makes it easier when you get there and say, here's the deal.
But Zach, I think also it's important to point out, and I think that you probably find this as well. There's some deals where it's like, this is the only way it's going to work. And you kind of have to come off with a little bit of, like, I really know what I'm doing here. I don't want to say arrogance, but like just a confidence that like this is the only way that you can make this deal work if you want to save your credit from a foreclosure. And so I really approached it with the attitude of, if I get the deal, great. If I don't, it's no big deal, because it's going to be a lot of work on my part.
Yeah.
So at that point in my real estate investing career, I was doing so many wholesale deals. They're just picking that low hanging fruit because there's so much low hanging fruit. This was going to be a little bit more work, a little bit more of a pain of a deal. I knew that the upside could be really big, but I was actually okay internally. This is huge for negotiating though. Is I was okay with walking away. And I think that if you are okay with walking away, you already have that leverage of negotiating. Like,
100%, Brian. And you say it, I say it. I think any good investor understands what you just said. The new person watching this or listening, they get so caught up that they finally found a deal that they lose the idea like there's another one around the corner. You just have to be patient if it doesn't fit, especially with like lease option deals, because you're right. I always say like, look, you've got to get that seller to trust you. How do they trust you? You have to have confidence that you can do what you say you can do, and they're going to see that, not arrogance, but like you said, confidence. And that's knowing the paperwork. And a lot of times there's a lot of paperwork with lease options, and I think that's what stops a lot of people from doing it. Just one thing on the paperwork, and then we're going to move on. What do you use to secure yourself? Like in our world, we use a memorandum of option.
Yep.
You use the same thing? Okay. Because I know some people will use what's called an affidavit, and some use memorandums. I'm just curious of like who uses what out there.
Yeah, I've got there's two documents for me. One is the memorandum of option, and the other one is the lease.
Yeah.
I have an actual lease itself because, and then the way I set mine up, I don't really like this, and I don't know how deep you want to get in this. I don't really like the sandwich lease option, which I think is what I kind of call the more traditional. I think that's what we think of is the investor stays in the middle and you kind of set the whole deal up, and I don't really like that. And I think there was a time and a place for that. I don't know that 2019 is that time or place.
I mean, we still do them. And the only
for me, I found those troublesome.
Yeah, we do them for the cash flow. I mean, there's so many ways to do creative financing. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And this is, I mean, we could be on here for hours and hours and hours talking about creative financing. But to just keep the listeners on track with us, so you structured a lease with the seller, right? With the option to buy, and then you put a renter in it, right?
Correct. So there's so many different things that you can do. I love option contracts because you have options, right?
Right.
Like I can rent it for the cash flow. I can flip it. I've flipped a house with an option contract, and then you can do a sandwich if you want to. There's also, you can wholesale it. Yep. You can do all sorts of different things with an option contract. At that point, the cash flow was there. Actually, this is an interesting little side point with this deal. The mortgage payment was $769. This is with taxes and insurance. I told him this is my personal rule. This is, again, goes back to me like I'm okay with losing the deal if I lose the deal. Yep. But it's got to be my way. And again, there's a little bit of arrogance there. But it's confidence, but it's a little bit of arrogance too.
Disciplined investor too, though.
Well, but it's like, I'm only doing it if it meets and I told him, look, I have to have minimum $300 cash flow. And this thing is renting for $1,000.
So you had him pay some money.
He is writing me a check every single month for $69. Every month for 4.5 years.
Oh yeah, pour it on. That's awesome sauce.
I love it.
But I told him that right there before we even signed the deal. Look, the market rent's $1,000. I'm probably gonna rent it for $1,000. The mortgage payment is $769.
I love it.
I have to have that $69 made up somewhere.
Anything's possible if you ask for it. You got to ask for it though, All right. So we've got a lease option deal. We know how you acquired it. We know how you negotiated it. You're in the deal. You're making cash flow. 4.5 years later, you got about 6 months left on it. And you either got to give it back, close on it, or sell it. You got to do something at this point. So this is where we are now with the deal.
Yeah. So exactly. Those are my exact options. What am I going to do? So I think it's really, the timing could not have worked better, right? I got this deal done in 2015. Here we are, end of 2019, going into 2020. 5 years. I think we all know what the real estate market's done in the last 5 years.
Oh yeah,
especially in Birmingham, especially in this area of Birmingham where this property is. The ARV on this property when I first put it under contract with the option was $125,000. Today, 170. So look at the equity that's been created. And this is another key point this is what I love to do. I've done this on every option deal I've ever done that had a mortgage, which is all of them, I think. Usually when you write an option, you write the contract, you write the paperwork, you have to put a price in there. What are you going to buy it for in 5 years when you exercise the option? Every single time I put this line, my purchase price is the balance owed at time of sale. At time I exercise the option. So that way I get the benefit of the buy. I don't just listen, I get the cash flow. Yep. I'm getting the appreciation, which we talked about. And now I get the other benefits of the principal pay down.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, we always ask for it. We don't always get it, but that goes back to another strategy that I share, which is, look, if the property's worth 100 and they owe 120, you could still do that with a lease option, because we put in the clause that you just said. Hey, but we're going to do a 20-year term with you, and the purchase price is going to be what's owed on the mortgage at time of close. So I'm going to rent it for 20 years, just like any other rental house, and in 20 years, I might owe a little bit on it, right? So that's a good point if people didn't catch that. I hope you heard what he said. All right, so now we're trying to get rid of the property. So now the exit on this thing. So what's the goal?
Yeah, so as I evaluate this thing, the tenant's moving out. It needs a little bit of work. I did all the major stuff. It had a new roof, had new HVAC already. I did a lot of the crawl space needed some work. I did all the main stuff before we even got going. Before we even rented out the first time. So all I got to do now is maybe update it, clean it up, clean it out, things like that. So I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to flip this thing. I'm not a house flipper. I don't really enjoy doing that, but in order to maximize my profit, I think I'm gonna flip this house. Well, I got consulting from one of the top house flippers in town, and he's like, well, don't you, and I already had offers, by the way, as is offers from hedge funds, from private equity funds. And I'm like, man, I'm already gonna make 30,000 on this thing minimum if I don't do anything. Right. So, but maybe I can make 40 or 50, maybe I can make more. So after
you got to put in to make that, right?
Exactly. So that's the conversation we had. Look, if you want to get top dollar for this thing, you're going to end up having to put 30,000 into it. It's like, that's a lot more than I thought I was going to have to put into it.
To make an extra 10 or 15?
Not make anything extra, to make the same.
Oh yeah.
So it was a no-brainer. So I bought it. I went ahead and bought it, and so this is a trick for you wholesalers out there. You want to find the best cash buyers who are paying the absolute most, which I think we all do, right? Yep. Every once in a while, you need to take down a property and put it on the MLS as is, which some people call wholetailing. You need to do these things so you get the maximum exposure, and you find do you know every hedge fund in your area? You know every private equity fund, if they exist in your area, which they are in most areas. Do you know there are people out there who are just normal retail buyers who want to be investors, and they go and they see a house is discounted, even 5%, 10%.
Oh, and they're all over it.
They're all over it. So we've gotten multiple offers. We literally just put this on the market a week ago. Had multiple offers already, getting ready to accept it, getting ready to close on it right now. So
love it, man. So you're going to make what, 30-something thousand on this thing? And that's just the end. The good thing about these lease option type deals is you get paid three ways. Did you get an option fee on the? Well, no, you rented it.
I rented it.
So you got paid two ways. You got the cash flow for 4.5 years, and then the end result, which is the sale.
Correct. Well, yeah, and I guess I combined two of those things to be the end, which would be the appreciation and the pay down, the principal pay down.
Yeah, but if you're making $300 a month, 3 times 12 is what's that? 3,600 times 4
times 4.5. Yeah,
that's $14,000, $15,000.
Nope, I didn't have a maintenance call the whole time.
Yeah,
I mean,
you got 15 there plus 30 something on the back end. Yeah. I mean, you're talking almost a $50,000 deal.
Right. And then what did I put into it? Let's divide it by what I put into it. $1,500. I need some of those things. $1,500 to catch up late payments and another $5,000. So I'm in it for $6,500 total.
Please. All right. That's a good deal. I'm glad we talked about that deal.
One of my favorite ones. Yeah.
We don't talk about it a lot. Like a lot of the people I interview, we just don't talk a lot about these types of deal structures. So I'm glad we did talk about that. So I want to talk about this real quick though. So we know radio was a lead gen for you. If we look back over the last, 12, 24 months, what would you say are the top 3 marketing lead sources for you right now?
I'm going to give you one because I only do one. And it's the most important one that we all should be doing, but none of us do this. And it's crazy. And this is what I'm all about right now, Zach. This has been my whole kind of like spiel. Everything I talk about when I go on podcasts, I talk about these things because it's so important. We don't do it. And it's networking. And as soon as I say networking, people are like falling asleep and checking out. Yeah. But just stick with me for just a minute. Are you being intentional when you meet people? And how, like, do you just show up at an event and just kind of go through the motions and hang out with your friends? Or are you intentional about your network and growing your network? The biggest way, Zach, that I get people to bring me every deal, I get to see every deal first before it goes to anyone else, which gives me the opportunity to either buy it, co-wholesale it, whatever I want, JV, whatever you want to do. I get first dibs on almost every deal in our market because I have created authority in my marketplace. Mm-hmm. I am known as the authority in Birmingham. It's crazy. I don't do the most deals. I'm not the best investor. I am the best looking though. But people bring me their deals because I've established authority in my marketplace. And anyone who's listening to this, I don't care if you're brand new or if you've been doing it as long as Zach has, you can create and establish authority in your marketplace by doing some simple things. Can we talk about this or no?
True. Yeah, we will. I want to stay on track with you. All right. My goal is to make sure we get through this deal first.
Okay. I thought we were still on the deal.
No,
yeah, let's go.
Very important questions. But I will say this though, networking absolutely, hands down, is one of the most common things when I interview people and I ask for 3, networking is always in those. So it's like the guys that are actually really doing it understand what you just said, right? It's the new person that thinks, oh, I got to have all these marketing things going on. I got to have this going on and blah, blah, blah. But here's what I want to talk about. I know people always, they love these 2 questions. So on the deal that you did, tell me something that you did absolutely right, and it's something that you said, look, we did this so right, we're going to implement this on everything we do forward.
Well, with that one in particular, so I think this is huge. And location, right? People say that's the number 1 rule to real estate.
Yep.
In our area in Birmingham, there's so many different, in your area too, by the way, there's so many areas where you can get great cash flow on paper.
Yeah, right.
On paper.
Right.
So I talked about at the beginning of the show, 77 rentals, right? I got up to 77 doors. Well, I did that and I went into a lot of bad areas.
Yeah.
So one of the things I did right that I'm going to do forevermore in my real estate career is stop buying in questionable areas. Stop buying in C- areas. And that's my preference. But look, what you see on paper with your returns is not always a reality, especially in C- areas or below.
Yeah.
In Birmingham, in my area. So maybe evaluate that. What's your portfolio look like today? Is it full of a bunch of stuff that maybe you're not in love with? Now I think is the time to start, and that's what I've been doing, is start getting rid of stuff that you don't feel comfortable with long term, maybe if the economy starts to shift. So that's probably one thing I did
kind
right.
of gave you the awakening of like, hey, I need to move more into C+ B- type rental types.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum. And that's one of that deal is one of the things for sure that helped me.
So let's talk about this then, because, we always like to talk about our wins, but, this business is not always about wins. Like, we have failures too, and those help us grow. So inside of this deal that you did, what's something that you were like, man, like we shouldn't have done that, or that was a big mistake and I'll never do that again? What's something you could share with people?
With this particular deal, I mean, I hate to... you always learn stuff with contractors. Like the first time that we started just doing some light rehab to it. I'm not a really great rehabber. I don't enjoy it. Dealing with contracts takes up a lot of my time. So that's for sure something that I would probably take away and, try to get a little bit better learning how to deal with contractors. This particular deal, I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but like, I feel like we did a lot of things right with this. Now we can talk about lots of other deals where I screwed up. This is one of the ones where I feel like we did a lot right. I brought in, are you bringing in consultants? People that know more than you? Are you bringing in a guy like Zack if he's in your marketplace? You bringing in people to actually consult with to tell you what you're doing right or wrong. So I think I did a lot of things right with this one. We can talk about failures with this one. It's hard to find them.
No, that's okay. Look, I share that question because of this. I want people to understand, can you create financial independence in this business? Yes. Is it going to be easy every single time? No. You're going to have some wins, you're going to have some failures, but it's a grind, and you got to work, and you got to put it together, and you got to get the right team around you, and you got to get the right coaching, and you got to get the right support. And like you had said earlier, which we can now circle back around to, about becoming that authority in your market, laying down the groundwork for that. I mean, you've done an amazing job. You came out of nowhere in your market and went against some of the bigger guys out there, and you rose to the top as an authority in your market, and there's some of that you can share.
Yeah, for sure. I did think of a failure though. Now that let's talk about this, because this is important, and this is the number one thing you do with a lease option. I realized this after the fact, after we're going to close on it to buy it. I thought for sure I had recorded the memorandum of option, but apparently I did not.
The whole time you didn't?
The whole time.
Oh, that's dangerous.
So lesson learned, right? I mean, obviously it didn't bite.
The good seller was honest, right?
It was a good seller.
You've been unhonest and done some shady stuff.
But listen, I could have got burned big time. This is a deal that I had done everything right on. Yep. The paperwork's right. Everything's right. The only thing I didn't do is go and record that memorandum of option through probate court.
Right.
And they could have come back and sold that property to someone else. They could have done anything they wanted to do because I didn't have control.
Yeah, they could have stripped the equity. Yep. They could have done all that. Yep, you're right.
So
that is a good lesson
you're recording. Make sure you're recording it.
There you go. So see, that's my point. There's always little things that we can learn. But let's circle back around to what you were talking about, becoming the authority.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because I know that's your big thing right now, right? Your big thing is really helping people all over the country identify, hey, look, if you want to rise to the top, become the authority. Become the person people come to with their deals, and come that they have money and they want to lend it out.
Totally.
And you're helping people do that all over.
Yeah, we've got 5 locations now throughout the Southeast of REI Live, Real Estate Investing Live. It's just live events, right? Some people call them RIA meetings, Real Estate Investor Associations. Some people just call them meetups. I help people start meetup groups, and I think meetup groups are powerful, super, super powerful. And it's probably the simplest and easiest way to get started building your credibility and building your authority is just starting a meetup group. Guys, listen, in April of 2016, about 3.5, almost 4 years ago, in this room that we're at, this is a small room. We were packing this place out of my little meetup group of about 20 people. But the first one, in April 2016, I just decided, you know what? I've learned some things. And I used to be a teacher, right? I used to be a college professor. Let me just teach a couple of things to some people trying to get started. Wasn't in it for the money, wasn't in it for anything. Just trying to establish my credibility in the marketplace.
Yep.
I put this thing on meetup.com, and guess how many people showed up to the first one?
2.
4 people, and one of them had to be there because he was one of my employees. So really only 3 people actually came to my first one. And I just poured into these people. I ended up wholesaling one guy that came to these meetups. I ended up wholesaling 5 deals. I found private money lenders through this stuff. And I started recording it and just putting it on YouTube. You can go to our YouTube channel and see the very first stuff we ever put on YouTube. And it was just me in this little room teaching some basic stuff. You do not, and there's another point. There's a guy in our market here in Birmingham who just started, hey, let's just meet up. And I think he called it the real estate meet and greet. And it was every other Saturday morning outside of Birmingham. And I went to it once just because I told him I would. And it's 4, 5, 6 people were coming, then 10 people, then 15, then 20. It became really big. And this guy hadn't done a single deal. Nothing. He just wanted to be the facilitator. He wanted to be around it and learn it. Now he quit his job. He's been doing real estate. He's been doing wholesale deals because he's been around it and he's surrounded himself and he's built himself up into the one of the authorities in our marketplace.
No, and I can touch on that personally because when I moved back home, we had our RIA here, the Madison County Real Estate Investors Association, and it wasn't really doing that well. And so I got the opportunity to take it over. And so for a decade now, I've had that. And I'm going to tell you, like, having that group has given me more authority in this market. I mean, I have relationships with people that I would have never had with just as an individual investors. Banks take me seriously a different way because I run the RIA. Vendors come in, take me differently. If I walk in and say, well, I've got this group of this many investors, they're like, oh, I mean, just to your point, creating authority, and it's not for everybody. Look, some people have a really hard time even thinking about stepping out of their house. But, for the person who sees that, I mean, there is some power in that. There's power.
So meetup groups, you're starting a podcast, Zach. Why are you starting a podcast? Is to continue to build your authority in the marketplace, whether it's locally or nationally. You're doing all these little things, writing a simple little book, writing a little how-to book. Didn't you tell me that your book was just a transcription of some stuff that you had done?
My very first book was a transcription of a training that I did.
Yeah.
And we got it out there, and then I had to write my second book because the first one didn't get as many good comments as I wanted.
but I'm just trying to point out how easy some of these things can be to do. And if you want to establish authority in your marketplace, these are some very simple things that you can get. Posting content, helping people, just helping people can lead to that. And then here's the thing, and this is the big takeaway.
Okay.
You're not going to have success right away doing this.
No.
So make sure you understand that before you even start. If you do want to start a meetup group or start something, look, like I said, I had 4 people come to my very first one, right? So here's the formula for success. Patience plus consistency.
Yeah.
Patience plus consistently doing it will equal success. So just keep doing it and you'll establish that authority. You'll start to get all the deals, all the private money, anything you could ever need in this business will start to come to you.
Because they come up to you because you're the leader of the group. Hey, what do you know? I just had a meeting, what's today? Tuesday. I just had a meeting Tuesday with a guy that started coming to our group. He wanted to come in. He's come up on a windfall. He's got all this money and he's wanting to know what to do with it. So we came in, we talked. He's going to be a private investor, right? Like I wouldn't have gotten that. I wouldn't have even known him if 100%. It wouldn't have been for that group, And so I'm with you. Well, since you are plugged in, Brian, down in the Birmingham market, tell me what you think about where the market's going to be at in 2020.
In Alabama and Birmingham specifically, yeah. I think over the next year, interest rates are still super, super low. I don't see any. We do a market. We're actually doing a market analysis today. Right after this, we're going to record it. We do it every month. We record a Birmingham area market analysis, and every single month, year over year, compared to the same month last year, we are still appreciating. Guys, Birmingham is appreciating at record levels, literally like double digits appreciation, which is insane. And I know Huntsville's doing the same thing.
Well, we do a lot of similar stuff. Like I even tell my members to go watch your market overview because, that we're so close and some of them are going into Birmingham because we do the same thing every month. My agent comes in and we do a market overview of Madison County, Limestone County, and Morgan County, which covers Decatur, Athens, and Huntsville. And we do the same stuff. We talk about where's this market last month, this month, and a year ago. Inventory, availability, growth, sales, volume, all the same stuff. And I think that's huge because, anybody in our area, and here's the thing, for those of you that are watching this, you're like, well, I'm not in the South. There are people in your market that are doing these. And if they're not, then you start it. You start your own channel. You start your own group where you just meet once a month and go over market reports, right?
Bam.
That's
Love
the point, right?
You're dead on, Zach. If it doesn't exist or if they're not doing it that great, you do it and you become the authority. You take that reign.
Right. Yeah. And because I'm going to tell you that data alone is valuable. It removes you from being a victim or blindsided when a market's changing. We can start to see it together doing these market overviews. So, yeah, I mean, people say, what do you know about the Birmingham market? I'm like, look, jump on Brian Tripp's page. They do a market overview down there. Watch what they do. All right. So tell me about this. So what's your goals then, man? I mean, I know you got a lot in the oven. Hopefully that me and you got some things that we'll be doing together.
Yeah, definitely.
But what's your goals for 2020? Like, what's Brian going to do?
Yeah, REI Live is a huge deal to me. It has been for about a year. We're continuing to open up locations. It's just, guys, it's just meetup groups. I teach people how to start meetup groups, and we put out lots of free content. And just, I think that meetup groups and live events, that's my thing. I think we all need to identify our strengths. And one of my biggest strengths is just as a connector. I just want to, when you are that's another authority piece, right? It's another thing that leads you to be the authority figure in your marketplace. If you know that someone needs something and you know who can help that person, for you to be the connector of those two people, you have instant authority. People are going to continue to come to you first for stuff because they trust. It goes back to know, like, and trust, right? And they know and they like you and they trust you. They're gonna want to continue to do business with you and have you lead them to where you want to go. So my thing is REI Live. Zach, thank you for giving me the opportunity to plug that a little bit. Real Estate Investing live events. I love what you're doing up in Madison County at the McREA. It's awesome stuff. I know a lot of people that go to that. I encourage people to, guys, go to your local REIA, even if you think it sucks. Go.
You never know who you're gonna meet.
Go for the networking. Yep. And I don't want to name names or talk bad about potential competitors, but the problem with my local REIA, why I started our own thing, is they were pitching me every single time I went, and I personally didn't enjoy that, right? Mm-hmm. So I went for the networking and I left. You have to go to all of them, go to all your meetup groups and continue to meet people, strategically network with people. Huge.
No, and I think you said something that's important. I think the evolution of meetups and REIAs, I don't know about all REIAs. There's a lot of REIAs that are still in the old model, which is bringing an outside speaker every single month, right? And that outside speaker has some type of widget, gadget, training, right? Which is what you're saying. And I think people got burned out on that. It's like every time I come, like, okay, this is a great idea, but I got to buy $1,000 course to do it. And look, I'm a capitalist. I believe in entrepreneurship. No, I have nothing against people selling what they believe in. Okay. Point blank. But I also have a thing where I believe, and we've changed our REIA over the years. Like we have guest speakers, but they're usually local people. I mean, that are coming in to share what they do. We don't really bring in, national experts anymore. But I believe that the REIA or the group or the live events that you're doing, like that's a safe zone. Like that's where they come to be safe, to build a community, to get to know each other, to collaborate on what's going on and where it's at. Totally. Now, as a leader of a group, I also believe it's my responsibility to make sure that I am providing other forms of education for them to keep growing. But it's their choice if they want to go that route. So with that said, Brian, give me one thing that you would say to a new person or you'd say to yourself when you were brand new starting in this business?
Stick with it. Again, it goes back to patience plus consistency. Be patient. You're anyone who promises you're going to get rich quick is probably not going to be the person you need to be following, because this is the long game. What we're doing, we're playing the long game. We're playing the cash flow game. It takes time, right? Continue to educate yourself. Devour this podcast, as many podcasts as you can, YouTube videos, go to live events, and just don't just be like a watcher or a listener, be a doer too. Take action. And but understand it's patience. The name of the game is patience, and be consistent with your actions.
Love it. So hey, listen, before I let you go, I got some hot fire questions for you.
Let's go.
But before I do that, I want everybody to get a copy of your book, man. What's the name of your book again?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's called Nothing's for Sale. Isn't that interesting?
Nothing's for Sale.
Nothing's for Sale. And the subtitle is How to Become the Local Real Estate Authority. by giving everything away.
And is that on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. We were giving them away for free and actually ran out of free copies. I'd love to give them for free. I just don't have any. All my copies are on Amazon, but it's $7.99. It's super cheap.
Yeah.
Super cheap.
That's paying for the shipping, basically.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
All right, there you go. Go to Amazon. Get Brian's book. Plug into what he's doing. The guy's changing people's lives, and he's doing it in a way that I think is probably one of the simple ways that we, as investors, tend to overcomplicate this business. And he's big on networking. You guys have heard me say over and over on these podcasts, like, I have dialed my marketing dollars way down right now. I lean in on my network because everybody else thinks they've got to do the marketing. But even my coaching students locally, I start them off with no marketing dollars. I'm like, no, we're going to build your network. We're going to build your touch. We're going to get out there and get deals done the free way first. And then once we make money, we'll start doing the paid way. Yeah. So I believe in what you say, Brian. I do. All right, man, here we go.
I didn't look at these ahead of time, by the way. So
that's good. Then we'll see how quick you answer them.
All right.
All right, man. What's the best place to vacation you've ever been?
A sporting event, probably Wrigley Field. Yeah.
Okay, that's different. Haven't had that one. What was your first automobile?
A 1986 Toyota Celica hatchback, baby.
Oh, hatchback, baby. What's your favorite season or holiday?
I like the hot summer. Yeah, the sticky hot summer in Alabama is probably my favorite.
My word.
Yeah.
All right, best podcast besides yours and besides mine. Like, what's a podcast you listen to and you're like, this is good?
The only one I listen to super consistently is Gary Vee. I hate to say it because it's all of his content put in audio form, and I'll get snippets of that almost every day. Yep. So probably the Gary Vee audio experience.
Awesome. All right, favorite food?
Something. Yeah, probably a fettuccine Alfredo.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, because you're always at a sporting event. I was waiting on you to say a hot dog.
Oh, yeah.
Are you an early to rise or do you sleep in?
I've done both. Right now I'm on the early to rise. I'm read and do like a little morning routine right now. So yeah, a little bit earlier to rise.
Do you go to bed early or do you go to bed late?
I'm in bed by about 8:45, asleep by about 9:30.
You are early to bed.
That's what happens when you have little kids. We have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old.
I wish I could say that, man. I stay up so late and still have to get up at 5:30. All right, man. What's your favorite book that you've read lately?
Oh man.
Or your or Audible, one you've listened to.
Yeah, I don't do Audible. I don't believe in that. Influence, and I've read this probably 3 times, but this year I read it again. And influence, if you want to learn how to persuade people to do what you know is right for them to do, you want to learn how to talk to people in the right way in their language. A book called Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini is definitely the best book I've read this year. It's probably the best book I've read 3 years in a row because I've read it 3 years in a row.
Awesome. Favorite movie?
Of all time, probably Big, Tom Hanks.
Big. Oh, I haven't had that one yet. That's good. I like that question.
Shawshank Redemption's way up there.
Shawshank Redemption was a good one. Absolutely. Well, guys, you heard it here. You heard it first on the Coffee with Closure show. This is where we weed out the gurus and we get to the real investors because we talk about real deals, about real markets, and about real investors. And you can plug in and do this. You just got to listen to some of our guests, listen to what the things they're doing. If you notice, they're not all making this all complicated. Yes, you got a lot of stuff being thrown at you and you think it has to be complicated, but it really doesn't. It can be simple. We make it complicated, okay? So I want you to plug in. Don't forget, you got to subscribe, click the little bell so you hear every time we put one of these out there. Brian, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and all the stuff you do.
Zack Attack. I love it, man. You're crushing it. Man, appreciate you.
I'm just trying to be the real estate boss. Guys, you heard it here. This is Zack Attack, and I'm out. I'll see you on the next one. Bye now.